So last time we talked about file input. We learned how to graphically present a browsing window to the user where they could go in and choose a file. We pulled that file into a program. We absorbed the information from the file, and then we did something to it. You guys remember that? Maybe? Hopefully, because that's what we did last time, right? Took some information from a file, formatted it just a little bit, nothing gigantic, and then spit it out to the screen, and that was it. So the thing we got to talk about or start talking about today, so that was file input. Now we got to start talking about file output, right? So we've absorbed the file, we understand the data that's inside of it, we did whatever we needed to with it, now we're done with it, and either we want to go, bless you, we either want to go put it back exactly the way that it was, in which case we don't need to do anything, or we need to make a change to the file in some way, and then we need to save it. And so that's what file output is all about. This one's a lot less complicated than the last one, right? The last one was pretty complicated because we're using graphical elements to make it easy for the user to get the file into us. This one's going to be a lot easier. So we're going to use an object called a print writer. So that is the object name, right? The data type name, and then variable name, whatever you want to call it. Usually they're called out file or out or something similar to that. And inside of the constructor, you're going to give it the name of the file. Say output.txt. Now, if the file exists, if the output file exists in some other directory, you're going to have to give it a fully qualified directory listing, right? So if it's inside of my documents, it's going to have to be something like C, users, your name, documents, folder that it's in, stuff like that, right? So they can get pretty long. If you just do this, just give it a name and put the output file in a default directory, that default directory is going to be, I believe that's true, the root of your project folder, maybe a little bit deeper inside of there. We'll see. We'll do it once. I can't remember exactly where it ends up. But it's going to be inside of your project folder somewhere, so it's easily accessible to you. Okay, so now that we've got the object, let's create a couple of strings. So first name, right? And another string, last name. Yeah, because it's a string, right? Anything that's a string, got to put quotes inside of it. Got to be double quotes. Can't be single quotes because single quote is character, double quotes are strings. And since I'm storing this information inside of a string, got to put it inside of there. All I'm doing is just declaring a couple string objects. And then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to say outfile dot println, right? Just like system.out.println, which is why we show you system.out.println in the first place, so that the format looks similar whenever you get to it, right? So println, those things exist inside of output files as well, right? So just like you're printing out to a console screen, that's exactly how you're going to put information back inside of a file that you want to edit in some way. So we're going to outfile.println, and I'm going to println, let's do last name first, and then a space, maybe a comma, right? And then first name last. And then after you're done, right, other stuff happens. You print out a whole bunch of stuff to it, that kind of stuff. And then after you're done with it, it's outfile.close. So when you are done with the file, you need to close it. And the reason is, I mean, if you think about it, let's say you've opened up a Word document, right? And you've got it open on your screen. And now you want to take that Word document and inside of File Explorer, you want to do a copy and paste operation and put it somewhere else. Windows isn't going to allow you to do it because the file is currently being edited right? Have you ever gotten that error? You can't do that to the file is currently being edited. Probably happens sometimes in your IntelliJ whenever you got it open, right? And you try to compress it whenever you have it open, and it kind of freaks out a little bit. IntelliJ is a little bit different because sometimes it doesn't lock it down. But if you don't close that file, then you may not get permission to do anything with it after your program executes. Or the next thing that comes around that wants to pull that file back into your program might not be able to because it isn't closed. So you have to close it. So let's talk about rules, bless you, rules associated with outputting to files. So rule number 1. If the file that you write to does not, so if the file that you're writing to does not exist, then the program, your software that you're writing, your program, will create a file in the directory that you list. So not listing a fully qualified directory, only putting output.txt is going to put that file somewhere inside of your project folder. Obviously, listing a directory is going to attempt to put it in that directory if that directory exists. If it doesn't, then you're going to have issues. Or in the same directory as the program if you don't list a directory that you want to use, right? So we'll put in the root, well, somewhere inside of your program folder. So if the file does exist, the information, in the file will be overwritten, no matter what. So if you've got a file that's 8,000 lines long and you only want to change one line inside of that file, you have to absorb the entire file, change that one line, and then output the entire file back. Does that make sense? You can't just edit something inside of the file. You got to absorb the entire file, make a change, and push the entire file back to where it came from. Because any write procedure that you make to the file is going to override anything that's inside of there. And also remember to close. Remember to close it. All right. So let's go in and do that really quick. So instead of popping this thing up as a message like we did last time, let's go ahead and write the file or write the data that I'm creating inside of here to a new file. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to declare a print writer. Print writer, and we'll just name it output.txt. And I need to put it in quotes. Jeez. Stop trying to help me. What did I do? Oh, exception. I'm just going to real quickly add exception to the method signature. I'll just add this one to the method signature really quick. File not found exception. So that way I can move along. Right, so we've got the print writer. So now we're going to start writing to the file itself, right? So I'm going to ditch this JOption pane that I've got inside of here. And instead, I'm going to do an outfile.println. And we're going to print line ID and then social security number. And then maybe I want to concatenate onto that a space and then last name, comma, first name. Just to have something different inside of there. So that is going to create a file named output.txt is what I use, somewhere inside of my project folder, and put that information inside of it. So after I run this, I should see that thing pop up inside of here, and I should be able to open it and see it. So let's run that thing really quick. So my information was on my desktop on employeeinfo.dat. Open. Ah, there it is. Right, see it pop up there? Output.txt. So it is. It's in the root of the project. And if I double click it to open it, oh, it's got nothing inside of there. Wonder what happened. We'll have to look at it. We'll have to debug it a little bit and see what the heck happened. Finished with code 0, so everything's okay there. Let's put a stop right here, run it in debug mode. Desktop. Oh, I did exactly what I told you guys not to do. Right? That should be, I'm going to delete it from here just to make sure. Go away. Do it. Okay. All right, let's run it again. Not in debug mode. Maybe it'll run faster. Desktop. There it is. There. All right, so there's the data. I got some formatting stuff inside of there. Right, so that was really me trying to teach you a lesson to close the file, right? Close the file, or else bad stuff's going to happen. But anyway, there's the data inside of it. Pretty simple, right? Just out print lines and print statements and stuff like that. All right, now let's talk about commenting really quick. I'm not going to put anything inside a OneNote for commenting. We're going to do it inside of this little program that we have, and then I'll just make this available afterwards. All right, so commenting, all I want from you guys right now for commenting is I want you to comment the header of your classes in every class that you make, and I want you to comment the header of each one of your methods that you create. And we'll keep it at that. So the assignment that's due, I just want commenting on the headers of everything, explaining what the objects are themselves, right? So above the class, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a series of comments that's going to have some information inside of it, basic information. And this is just the way that I comment. And you guys can comment however the heck you want to. But I use single line comments instead of multi-line comments. It makes no difference one way or the other. Oh, let me ditch the lights. Whoa. You guys should be able to see that really well. Right, so I'm just going to use single line comments, and then inside of here, all I'm going to do is do stuff like name, right? And then we'll do just the only reason I did it was because you can see it a little easier than like if I'm just glancing at it, I know that part right there is a comment because I've got something in there. If I was using multi-line comments, then I'd probably do something like this. And then when I ended it, I would end it like that, right? Just so when I'm glancing at it, I can see the comment blocks for the headers that exist. But again, you don't have to do that, right? Some people comment just like this. Get rid of it. Just do commenting like this, and that's perfectly acceptable. This is just the way that I like to do it, and that's the reason that I do it. And so we're going to do something like, I don't know, let's do file name. What is my file name inside of here? In-class test is my file name. Let's do date 10/9/2017. And then let's do program description, right? This program is used to show examples of stuff we do in class, right? So that is my header for my program. Basic information, name, file name, date, and then program description. That's enough to handle whatever it is that we're doing. All right, so then we need a header for the class itself. Same kind of thing inside of here. We'll do class name. It is kind of superfluous to do a class header for main because everybody knows what the main class does, but it is reasonable for all the classes that you guys create, right? Describing what the class actually does, right? So class name, and then class description. This, why doesn't my shift key work? This is the, I don't know, main class for my program. You guys are not going to put a header over the main class, right? But just to give you an idea of the information that you would put over a class header, right? Your description would be like with the string manipulator like we did, like we're doing in our current one. This is the string manipulator class. Its job is to take strings and edit them and format them in a certain way, blah, 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 blah. And then each one of the methods that you have inside of there is going to have a header as well. Now, the only method I've got inside of this is the main, but the data that you're going to put inside of it is identical. So we're going to create a header up here. Put a method name in here. This one, main. Well, we'll do we'll do return type. In this case, it's just void. If we did return something, we'd say the data type that we're returning, and then what that object actually was that we were returning, right? I'm returning a string that is all of the capital letters inside of the input string that the user input, right? That's what I would put inside of that. Return type. Arguments. This one has a single argument and then a description for it. Used to pass in inline execution arguments. Right? That's what that one's for. And then you would do something like description. This is the first method that executes when the program is run. right? That's it for now. As we get more complicated, I'll make you guys put comments around, like difficult algorithmic processes that happen inside of there and stuff like that. Yeah? So that's it. So I'll take that code and put it out on Blackboard so that you guys will have kind of a template for the information that I want inside of there. Pretty simple. Like I said, I don't really care about the formatting of the commenting. Comment it however you want to. Whatever. I'll be able to see it just because it'll be green inside of your stuff. So don't worry about making it exactly the way I did. You make it however you want to. Alrighty. We move on. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is a wonderful thing called string.format. So we've used string.format in the past, but we have never really gotten a formal introduction to it, and we've never really used any of the features that are available inside of string.format. So a lot of you guys, whenever you're outputting stuff to the screen, the problems that you've been running into are alignment problems, right? So you output something to the screen and you can't get data inside of there to align correctly. Well, string.format is going to solve all of those issues. It's going to allow you to actually put a fixed width type format inside of there so that you can display tabular data in a way that looks halfway decent. So I think maybe the best way to handle this is going to be inside of code. So I'm going to create a new project, I think. And I'll call that project string format test. New window. All right, here I am. Back inside of IntelliJ, where it's formatting aggravates me. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a string. Let's call it output. And then I'm going to create some other variables, so some integers. Number 1 is equal to, we'll set them equal to 0. We'll go get some input from the user. And number 2, 0. We'll create some doubles. Number 3, 0.0. Number 4, 0.0 as well. All right, so now we've got that. Let's go get some input really quick. So we'll do a j, well, we'll say number 1 is equal to j, well, integer dot %, go away, dot %, j option pane dot show input dialog. We're just going to say enter an integer value. And I will make this multi-line so we can see it. All right, and then I'm just going to copy that. We'll do it 4 times, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to say integer, say again. Yep. We're going to do double here, and then we got to do double.parse double, maybe. Yes, I'm aware. double dot parse double. There we go. So now we've got our input. Okay, now let's talk about string.format. So we're going to get the input from the user, and then first thing I want to do is I'm just going to straight output one of the numbers, right? So I'm just going to JOptionPane dot show message dialog, and I'm just going to output whatever. Number 1 is, and then we'll concatenate onto that, number 1. That want to be a pretty straightforward output. Look exactly the way that you think it is. Just going to output whatever somebody enters inside of there. All right. So now let's get into using string.format. So now I'm going to take str, no, what did I name it? Output. So I'm going to take output. I'm going to set it equal to string.format. Now let's say that I'm trying to line up data, right? So let's say I'm going to display more than one. I'm going to say I'm going to display number 1 and then number 2 after that, the 2 integers that I've got inside of there. And I want them to line up. And I have no idea what values they're going to be, right? Because they're input from users. The first one might be 2. And the second one might be 46,953, right? If I just straight output those like this, they're not going to line up. So let's format it the first time like I just described, where they're not going to line up, and then we'll use the features of string.format so I can show you guys exactly how to make it work. So I'm going to say number 1 is, and then a space, and then I'll concatenate onto that number 1, and then concatenate onto that like a new line character, get me down to the next line, and then number 2 is, and then concatenate onto that number 2. So let's run this really quick. We got to get numbers that aren't going to line up. So we're going to say enter an integer value. So I'm going to say 123 as my first one, and the second one's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Double value, doesn't matter. Not going to display it anyway. So there's the first one, just displaying number 1. And did I not display the other one? Didn't do a JOptionPane? You guys got to catch me whenever I do that. I only put the output inside of there. JOptionPane dot show message dialog, null, and output. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right? So let's say we wanted these things to line up like you're an accountant, right? Everything has to write a line inside a certain space, and we don't know what that space necessarily is going to be because we have no idea how large the number is going to be. That's where string.format is going to help us. So I'm going to go inside of here and reformat this entire thing. I'm just going to start with that because it's going to change so much. Okay, so I'm inside of the string that's going to be inside of there. Now, in string.format, everything's going to be literal inside of the quotes, right? So I'm going to print out number 1 is and then a space. In this case, because I'm going to control the amount of spaces, I'm actually not going to put a space inside of there. And then I've got to use the following format in order to put formatted data inside of the string.format. So I'm going to start with a %sign. So %sign means I'm going to insert some formatted information inside of here. And then the next number after that, in our case, is going to be the number of spaces that I'm going to use in order to display the data that's inside of there. So let's say I use 15, right, just to make sure that I've got enough room to fit whatever it is that I'm going to put on there. So, and the last thing that you're going to put inside of there is what type of data am I going to display inside of here. In this case, we're doing an integer value, and you're going to use D to indicate an integer. D meaning decimal value, base 10, something base 10, right? Decimal, base 10, integer value inside of there. And then the last thing that you want to do is, this is a placeholder for the data that you want to put in there. The data that's actually going to be inside of that placeholder gets passed to it like an argument, just like an argument list inside of a method call. So after the string is done, I'm going to put a comma and then start listing the arguments in the order in which I want them to appear, right? So I'm going to say number 1. So it will take the first placeholder and it will substitute inside of that first placeholder whatever is inside of the first argument. So it's going to take the value that's inside of number 1 and it's going to put it right here in 15 spaces. So it's going to pad with white space until it gets out to 15 spaces and then put the value that's inside of number 1 inside of there. Now, if I also want to display the information that's inside of number 2, let's say I want to do it on the next line, right? So new line character, you guys are used to /n. Whenever you're using string.format, it's %n. Right, so %n gives me a new line. So this is going to bring me down to the next line. And then I'm going to say number 2 is, and then a semicolon, and then another placeholder to fit number 2. The placeholder is going to be exactly the same as the other one because I want them to take up the same amount of space. So I'm going to say %15d. But I also have to give it the argument, right? So I've got a second placeholder inside of here, 15d. I've got to give it another value to put inside of there. So I'm going to put a comma and put a second argument, number 2. Now if we've done this right, it's going to display number 1 is 15 spaces, and the number that's inside of there is going to appear. And then go down the next line, number 2 is 15 spaces, and then the number that's going to display inside of there right aligned. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be a runtime error. Let me see if it's actually a compile error whenever it happens. It doesn't look like it's a compile error. Is it gonna stick? I don't know. Let's run it and find out. Hold on, let me cancel out of this. Let me get up here and I'm gonna comment out some stuff so we don't have to. Expected a semicolon. What did I do? Oh, I commented the wrong thing. So number 3 all the way down to there. There we go. So now it'll just give me the 2 integers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7, 8, 9. There we go. Number 1 is whatever. Yeah, runtime error if you don't put it inside of there. So you got to give it both of its arguments. You can give it the same value if you wanted to, right? We could do number 1 again. So you got to be careful of that, but I'm going to give it number 2 so it actually displays it correctly. So let's see what this thing's going to look like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then, okay, so there's the first one. Display the next one inside of there. Is, what did I do? 15D. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 15 right aligned. What did I put? Where's my extra space coming from? Is number 2 is, let's see where my extra space is coming from. %15, new line character. Number is, I don't see where my extra space is coming from, but obviously I've got an extra space inside of there. One thing that you guys are going to notice whenever you're dealing with JOption panes as opposed to system.out.print is sometimes the formatting isn't going to be exact. Like you'll put exactly the number that you think it needs to be, but it won't line up. And the reason for that is spacing inside of JOption panes is a little bit different than it is inside of a console. So like inside of a console window, all the letters that exist are all the same size, right? all the typeface. A W is the same size as an I. It takes up the same room. But inside of here, that's incorrect, right? So an I is literally smaller than a W is. And so if your prompts are different, then things are going to change. I can't explain exactly what's happening inside of here. But you can see that both of these are lined up, right aligned, right? Inside of there. If I wanted them to be left aligned, all that I would need to do is put a negative in front of the 15, right? So if I want to left align one, right align the other one, I'm going to put a negative in front of there, and that's going to left align my information. So if I run it again, 1, 2, 3, okay. The first one left aligned, taking up 15 spaces, right? So you got all this white space out here. And then the second one is right aligned inside of there. So you can change the alignment. What was that? Somebody asked a question? I missed it. Maybe not. Okay, so now let's talk about doing double values. So I'm going to display double values. The difference between integers and doubles is obviously significant digits to the right of the decimal. So I'm going to say output string.format, and let's go with number 3 is, and then the semicolon. So the format is similar inside of here. So %. Now this one's different. This is where we get a little bit weird. So the first number that's going to appear after the % sign is going to be the number of spaces that you want the element to appear in, right? So in our case, the last one was 15. It's going to take out 15 spaces, and then you're going to put a dot, and then you're going to put a number after that, which is how many significant digits you want to show to the right of the decimal place. So if I'm dealing with like currency or something like that, and I only want 2 digits to show to the right of the decimal, then I would set 2 or whatever I want to. The difference between doing this and just lopping that information off is that this actually does round, right? So if you've got 56.378 and you do 2 decimals, it's going to be 56.38 instead of just lopping the thing off and just keeping the 7. It will actually round. Okay, so that'll display the first one, and then we'll do the other one. We'll do a new line character inside of there, %in, and we'll say number 4 is, and then again, %15.2. And then we've got to send it the arguments that are going to hold that data. First one being number 3. Second one being number 4. Yep. And then I'm going to comment some stuff so that it makes things go a little faster. So comment that. Let's comment out the prompt for 1 and 2. And then at the end of this, I got to output semicolon, and then JOptionPane dot show message dialog, null, and the output string, and then go. So the first number, 56.3278. Okay. Okay. And errors. What did I get? What did I do wrong? Oh, right. So I said 15.2, but I didn't actually give it a format of the number, right? So last time it was D. This time for floating point values, it's F, right? So floating point, to tell it what type of data that's going to be inside of there. And then there they are. I've got that extra space inside of there. Maybe it's that new line character that it's going crazy over, right? But rounded and lopped off the information that I didn't want. I know this is riveting stuff, but this is stuff that I'm going to make you guys do on your assignments. No longer is stuff going to appear on one line and I count it as A-OK. All right, so last thing that we need to talk about before, oh, geez, we've got 2 minutes. We don't have the time to talk about the last thing I want to talk about. So we're going to have to hold up until next time. Wednesday, we'll finish this up, and then we'll get into arrays. So see you guys in lab today.